Welcome to Gamblin and Ramblin, a weekly show where we react and rant about the weekend in sports betting. I'm Tim Kalinowski. My co-host is Charlie DiSturco. You can follow us both in the Action app, Action YouTube channel, Action Network HQ on Twitter and TikTok. Who cares about all that? Action Network's great, but Charlie, it's March. It's March. You look like you haven't slept, my man. You're working around the clock. That's the life of an Action college basketball capper. How you doing, man? You look like shit.
Thank you. I think that is a compliment. That proves that I'm doing something right here. I got the pineapple shirt not just on because it's a Tuesday. It's because we just recorded Action Island. Now I'm hopping on here with Gambling and Rambling. You know, hours are long. I don't sleep. I'm just handicapping as best I can. I mean, it's March, right? We sleep till May, as Rothstein likes to say. I am so excited for the NCAA Tournament to start tonight, but also just for it to actually get underway with the round of 64 on Thursday. I'm off actually on Thursday, so it's going to be the best day of, right? I got blessed after doing all the live shows this week. I got one day to record and sit down and watch some hoops, so.
Yeah, and look, I didn't mean to come off too strong there. I say that in the most dearest way possible. It's just, for a guy who hasn't slept to be in our nice studio in New York with all those lights, it's like, wow, it can kind of... It's kind of freaking out.
Not all of us can be like nice, showered, looking prim and proper. Like they had a haircut like a week ago. Not, hair going all over the place. Like 2 pounds of gel in my hair.
This is the life of a guy who tails picks and a guy who makes picks.
Yeah, so, you can tell the age in my eyes is not just because I'm older than you. It's because we've had lack of sleep the last week.
Yeah. Well, for your bracket, I mean, obviously you're handicapping these games. You and I will be betting on all of these. What's your kind of your bracket strategy? How does it work with you? Are you I mean, we all know print it out. Yeah, we're all printing it out. Okay, that goes without saying. But right. What's the first thing you got to do? Because obviously I saw you like getting in your picks on Sunday night. The second selection show ended. I was hopping along with you, telling you what's obviously the gambling, but what's next?
So yeah, I think that the biggest thing when we talk about gambling and March Madness is separate gambling and separate your bracket, right? They're completely different things, right? I'm logging these picks mostly because I find value in numbers, not because of I think like you know what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to because I think Oral Roberts or I think Vermont has value at 11.5 against Marquette, I'm going to think they're going to win, right? That you pick up you make them separate. I think the biggest thing, and this is the thing that I've learned over the years, I only make one bracket. I think I'm going to change that and do multiple this year just because this is the year that I expect the most chaos to happen. So I want to be different, and you want to be different in general. Like you don't want to have the chalkies ones in the Final Four. You want to throw in some fours. You want to throw in some sixes. I'm
so glad you said that. I'm literally so glad you said that because I have a thing that I've been kind of cooking up this week, a take. It's like I don't like people with multiple brackets. You get one. But I will say this. So I say you get maximum 2. You get one of what you think, and then you get like your chaos bracket, like what you would want to happen, your homer bracket. Anything else when you're sitting there with someone, I'm in this one league, I have Oral Roberts in the Sweet Tea. It's like, buddy, what are you cheering for? Like every shot someone's cheering and it's like, no, that's my office pool. No, that's different. I've been in my family pool. I'm like, oh my God, shut
It's
up.
Like the 8-9, the 7-10s. They're like, well, because I didn't know, I just had one side on each bracket so that no matter what, I get a point. I'm like, dude, pick a damn side and roll with that. You're handicapping these games, or you're looking at these games. You make your pick. Don't go, by product. I mean, one of them's gonna win, so they're close spreads or they're close to this. So I'm gonna go with both in my bracket. I only make one. Last year it murdered me because I had Kentucky winning it all, and they lost to St. Peter's in the first round. So that's the downfall of having one versus two. I might have a second this year just out of pure chaos and expecting the unexpected. I think that this is the year that we could very well see no number one seeds in the Final Four. We could see one, maybe two, but I would highly doubt that we see a lot of chalk in this tournament.
Yeah, I don't understand how someone can make 10 brackets. I really don't get it. Sure, it's like you because you're thinking of it as I'm just buying lottery tickets. It's like this is No, like take a stand. I always think of I always like when I picture March Madness and making the bracket, I always picture like the president signing his bracket. And that's like, look, these are the picks. I'm not going to be like, this is my United States bracket. And then I have a different group. Like that's the bracket. And then if you want to have like a fun one, like if you want to have like a Gumar bracket, that's fine. But you get one bracket. So I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah, you're not waiting every year to make 10 different brackets. You're making every year to sit down on that couch to dissect every matchup, to try and pick what you think is going to be the perfect bracket, and then you ride with that bracket. It should be your do or die bracket. Maybe that's why I've only won like 1 or 2 tournaments challenges in the past like 10 years, but I enjoy that a lot more, and having one bracket to live and die by than by like having 4 different champions across 4 brackets and being like, well, one of them might hit. So that's
I agree. What is how do you actually fill it out? Are you a region by region guy? Are you a 64 to 32 to 16? How does that work with you?
You know what? I actually don't have like a method to the madness. I kind of just do my thing. It's very weird. I did it yesterday, right? I filled out my bracket and I did like one region, and then I did the next region, and I got like maybe a quarter of the way through and stopped and went to the next. And I just kind of like, I find my match. I have a lot of games where I'm very sure of like, oh, I think UConn's going to make the Sweet 16. Oh, I think Texas is going to make the Sweet 16. So I start putting that into my bracket, and then everything kind of comes together. So it's not, I don't go region by region. I don't go round of 64, then round of 32. I kind of look at like little like sections of which I'm more confident, and then I fill them out. And then the least confident areas is where I kind of spend a little bit more time and hesitating. And that's probably where my downfall comes, is that I don't know what to do in like some of these situations where like an underdog seems like too trendy of a pick. And then I'm like, well, I'm overthinking it. And then I go with the favorite, and then the underdog actually wins, or vice versa. The underdog is so trendy that I take it, and the underdog or the favorite murders.
I get sick over the trendy dog thing now, because with gambling being so, public and so popular, it's like, and now I'm like, okay, well, I feel like every dog I want to take to go to the Sweet 16 is some way you could argue a trendy dog, because we're just talking about the bracket more. That's what it feels like to me, or just talking about betting more.
That's what I'm like. Furman and one other team that I'm blanking on right now, but Furman and Oral Roberts, both of those teams are like such heavy Cinderella picks that I'm like starting to get like nervous, where I'm like, I don't even think I think I'm going to take Virginia, because I go back and forth. That's like that section, that 4-5 is where I'm having the most issues, because I'm like, well, San Diego State isn't that great. Virginia's not that great, but like Furman is such a popular underdog. And now I'm getting in my head where I'm like, well, the public, I know Stuckey's on Furman. I know DeBondo's on Furman. Obviously it's with the points, but it's just, it seems too trendy. It reminds me of Michigan against Colorado State last year, when Michigan was like the popular, or was the favorite, and Colorado State, or I guess Colorado State might have closed as the favorite, but Colorado State was the 10 seed, and Michigan was the 7. And everybody was on Colorado State, and the first half went great, and then the second half, Michigan absolutely blew the doors off of the Rams. And now I'm at that point where I'm like, well, is Drake that pick against Miami? Well, what about Furman against Virginia? Like, that's when it starts getting in your head of like the mixing, gambling, and bracket, which is why you need to separate that altogether.
And that's what I feel too when I think when I'm thinking of my doggies as well, or my Cinderella picks. I always think, or not always, I think most recently to San Diego State last year against Providence. That was a trendy dog, because of the way that South Dakota State just chucked threes. They were like the fun, they just chuck them. So I felt like that was a trendy dog pick. It ended up being it. Providence, the chalk, ended up winning. So I know what you mean. I get that kind of anxiety as well. And when I'm filling out my bracket, like similar, like, I think you can say, I think UConn's going to the Sweet 16. And then you start penciling it in, and you're like, ooh, I don't like how they have to get there, though. Like, whoever team it is, like, ooh, well, I didn't think that was the path.
And then you're overthinking it, and you're like, well, maybe St. Mary's could give UConn a run, but then I think St. Mary's is going to lose to VCU. But if they get, and then you're just like throwing out 7. It's literally the Charlie Always Sunny meme. I always revert back to that, where he's like on the board, and he's like, well, but this to that to this, and I'm like,
it is.
Oh, I'm going nuts here. Especially when you're running on low sleep, and you're betting so much, and you're researching so much, you just keep finding little loopholes where you're like, well, maybe they don't match up that well, or maybe they are going to get bullied by like Power 5 competition, these underdogs in March and stuff. Like I'm on Montana State against Kansas State, plus a 14 versus 3. I probably will take them to win outright, have them +9. Like in theory, it's a good matchup for Montana State, but like Kansas State's they're big boys, and Montana State, like how much does the Big Sky really come into account? Like that's where I get nervous, right? The Big Sky, Eastern Washington, Kansas, they had a chance with the Groves brothers, and then Kansas just ultimately pulls away because they're the big brothers. And then they're the more physical, athletic team.
I also don't make my bracket until like Thursday morning at 8 a.m. I wait until like the last second.
I normally do it Wednesday night or Thursday a.m. But obviously now that I'm like actually doing content and action, I have to have my bracket kind of decide. Like tomorrow's the bracket reveal show. Wednesday, today was Action Island, so it was like future E type pieces, so like Sweet 16s, winning regions, etc. So like most of my bracket is starting to, at least my long-term plays, like the round of 64, I don't have filled out. The round of 32 for the most part, but after that, I have most of my Sweet 16 and Elite 8 Final Four champion.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I want to soak up. I want to be a sponge. I want to take as much information. I'm just like inhaling information from now till Thursday morning. I literally hit submit at 11:55. Some of these.
You're like SpongeBob with the suds when he's just like fully just getting more and more and more, bigger.
Well, then I'm sitting there, forget password, reset password. I'm filling it out. I hit refresh. All the pics are gone. Like that's the only thing you kind of run into. So that's why I kind of push it to like at 8 or 9 a.m. to give myself some cushion there.
Yeah, I like that. I wish I could do it, but
yeah. Well, you're big time now. What's your bet? I'm sorry, my freaking mom's calling me here. What's your what's your like great March Madness memory being in school or watching in class? Because that's when you think about it. I'm 24. Most of my March Madness memories are from being in school.
Yeah,
it's my first time I've ever had Thursday off.
My first ever March Madness memory that first came to me when we discussed this was Duke against Mercer. Jabari Parker's Duke year. I took Mercer to beat Duke in that upset. And I remember sitting in high school on my phone in the middle of math class, just like it's on my lap and I'm like trying to pay attention, writing notes, but like also like looking down as Mercer just like starts to pull away from Duke and it's Jabari Parker. And I'm like, this Duke team's overrated. They run through just Jabari. They're going to, I'm telling everybody, right? Like I'm running up to like random people that don't want to hear about it that I haven't even met in high school. I'm like, yo, Duke, like Mercer, like first round upset. Cause that's me. And in high school, I was that like type of sports guy. And I'm just sitting there watching. And I just remember running out of math class as like, there's a minute left. And I'm like running around parading through the lockers, like, let's go. And I just remember that.
No, I remember that in high school. I remember being in high school too. That was because that was the 12 o'clock game or the 12:30. It was,
it was right. Yeah.
Started and finished while we were in school. And I remember where I was. It's funniest thing in my high school, we used to have this TV in our library, and the TV, I've never seen this TV go on unless it was 12 o'clock on Thursday of the first day of March Madness. Never saw this TV go on ever. So in my high school, you'd go to the library if you had a free period, if you had a study hall. And also too, like if you were in class, you'd go to the bathroom, you'd grab, the bathroom pass, and you would always go hang out in the library for 10 minutes and then, go back. So when it was March Madness though, 12:01, that TV went on. Someone had to do some sort of charades to steal the clicker or whatever. They turn on the game, 12:01, and you'd have all the people in study hall gathering around watching. And then you get all the floaters going to the bathroom.
Right.
I bet if you checked every teacher's bathroom list, it was just, 3 or 4 people all signed out at the same time. Everyone, oh yeah, I think I'll stay for a little bit. Next thing you know, 35 minutes, you've been on a bathroom break and you're just sitting there, little Tim sweating out, Mercer plus the points.
That was always the way. You always had to go to the bathroom and like watch for like 15 minutes, especially if you were in like a class with a hard teacher where that wouldn't be like, because some teachers I had in high school and middle school would be like, oh, let's put on the games and like, enjoy it, right? Like it's March Madness. It happens once a year. It's basically like the Super Bowl, but like for college basketball junkies. And so I also remember there's 2 more memories that I have vividly. And one, I was in an after school program doing like a sports club and we had on the game. And I'll never forget Aaron Kraft.
I love me some Aaron Kraft.
And I hated Aaron Kraft. I hated Ohio State. Aaron Craft was just one of those players that I could not stand. So when Dayton did it and Aaron Craft was lying on the floor like this, just like vivid memory pictured. And I'll never forget Florida Gulf Coast, because that was when I was like 16 years old. I just turned 16 because my birthday's always March Madness week. I just turned 16, and I remember watching Florida Gulf Coast just cruise through as they like pull off upset after upset. And it was the coolest thing because you're like, you know, you're not old enough to drive. You're watching college hoops. Your mom's driving you to your friend's house to like watch college hoops after. And one of my buddies knew one of the players on the team who was part of Dunk City. So I was just remember thinking like, oh my God, like I'm telling everybody, I'm like, my buddy knows one of the players on Dunk City. Like, this guy is so cool. I'm rooting out for them. Like, this is the point where like my brackets were like already chalked at this point. I was going nuts. Florida Gulf Coast was like one of my, I think that might have been my favorite Cinderella team ever.
Yeah, it has to be everyone's. It was incredible. I had a friend who thought it was until they were literally whatever Sweet 16 or whatever it was, thought until like the final game, thought the entire time that it was Florida Golf Course.
Man, why are these golfers good at college hoops? Like, I don't understand.
Like, oh, I thought it was like a golf school, like Florida golf course. Might as well have been.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knew who they were, and they just came out of nowhere. It was nuts. I don't know about you, and like I know you're wearing a Kentucky jersey, but like when I was so young, like just seeing some players go off, like it was the coolest thing. Like I'll never hate JJ Redick, because watching him at Duke and just like him going off and being like an automatic bucket, like Jimmer Fredette BYU. I just remember like getting back from my school trips or in class, just like that's what March Madness is all about. Like you're 10 to like 17, you're watching on TV up to these like college kids that to you they're like adults, but they're really not now that you're like in the position that you are now. But you're looking up to them, and you're watching like the underdog BYU come in, or like the favorite with JJ Redick, and just absolutely light it up from three, unconventional three at that point, right? The 3-point shooting wasn't the biggest thing in the country, and you're just sitting there like, yeah, JJ, like, oh my God, Jimmer.
The Jimmer range. Well, look, here's all you need to know. This is a De'Aaron Fox jersey.
Yeah.
So I just like loved watching him just go like, you know, good guard play when they just like give me the ball, go to the rack, just carve it. It's those. You're right. Those memories are I remember
Trey Burke.
This one Jimmer. I remember it was funny. I had this awful bad beat in high school. It was like, you know, right after school, we went to my buddy's house, and I was sitting there. I was drinking from a glass, and it was like a thin glass, and it was Michigan, Oklahoma State. I think it was like plus 2.5, something like that. 3-pointer for the back door, meaningless. And I was sitting there, and I with a bad beat, and I bit through the glass. And then my buddy's glass. I was sitting there, and like I didn't say a word. I just went, and everyone just started ching, and everyone just like turned to me, and I'm like spitting out glass out of my mouth.
I've done some wild stuff with my like anger beats, but I don't know if I've ever broken glass with my teeth.
It was reaction. It was just like the second.
Yeah. You're just like you bit down because you're like, fuck.
Yeah. I was like,
I didn't mean to say that out loud. And you were just like, oh, and then you just bit the thing off. Yeah. It's so cool. Like you just remember like so many things. Like I remember where I am for like bad beats. I remember where I am for big shots. The college hoops, that's what March Madness is about. I remember like Trey Burke. I was at my buddy's house on the couch and watching Trey Burke just pull from like half court. It just some of these things, man. So that's what it's so great about March is like there's gonna be upsets. There's gonna be like sweet moments, and I cannot wait to see this year's Cinderella.
I love every memory. I was on my buddy's couch.
All
the two of us, every memory. I was on my friend's couch.
I remember it was like 3 of us on the couch. We're sitting there and just like all of us like, oh, Trey Burke. Like,
yeah, it's like really dynamic, you two. Yeah, I was on my friend's couch.
Yeah, you know, it's like, but you remember that. Like, I know exactly where I was. I know where I was sitting. I know how I reacted. Like, I can picture that memory, but I can't remember what like I did with like my friends like last Thursday or something like that.
I know.
You know what I mean?
That's why it's so nice. It's so pure.
Yeah, exactly. March is the best.
Oh, it is. What here's like what I kind of, this is how I look at it, and I said that earlier with the two brackets. I like to do a who I think is gonna win, who I want to win, and then like a Cinderella pick. I don't know if you want to go first, me to go first, but I'd love to hear what you have to say for all the capping you've been doing. I want to hear where you spit out.
Okay, so here's the handicapper's point of view, and then I promise that this is the statistics, the end of the statistics and the analysis for college hoops. Since 2002, when Ken Pom recorded offensive and defensive efficiency since it started, there have been just one champion that has not finished the season inside the top 25 in offense and defensive efficiency. Right now, there are 5 teams inside that top 25. Houston, UCLA, Texas, UConn, and Alabama. So that will tell you all you need to know. Those are the 5 that I think are going to be in contention. I think Houston and Texas end up facing in the Elite Eight. I think Texas ends up winning that Final Four.
You love Texas.
I love Texas. I think they're going to win it all. I have money on them to win it all. Hook them. I think they're going to win it all. They're one of the best teams in the country, pound for pound. They have the experience, and they didn't even have Timmy Allen, and they absolutely rolled Kansas. So I think Texas is going to win. I right now haven't decided who I have in the finals, so that I'll just leave that out. But who I want to win is I want Creighton to win. I was on them 70-1 preseason. I love them. I love Kalkbrenner. I just love the team as a whole. It's one of those teams that like the 6th seed that like is going to go through Alabama, then beat probably Purdue or Duke or Marquette, and then they get probably Houston or Texas or UConn. I want
easy enough.
yeah. But I want like, but that's the path is so difficult that like I want Creighton to like upset the norm, and whether or not they actually, you know, the only team that never did the KenPom to 25 was UConn. So that UConn Shabazz Napier year when they were just like not supposed to make a run and they did. I believe it was Shabazz Napier. I'd have to double check with that or Kemba. But anyway, regardless, since 2002, and Creighton is that team that I think has all that it takes to really make that tournament. So that's who I think will win. That's who I want to win. I'll give my Cinderella pick after. I'll let you go with your 2.
Okay. It's tough. I mean, when you look at path, I feel like Bama's got like the path. But I will say, I think UCLA. That's my pick. I know that's the West is everyone's talking about how brutal the West is. I just think there's something to be said with, I can't get that UCLA team out of my head that like also made it to the national championship, right? I can't get out of my head. I'm like, oh, I'm the Leo meme. Like I've seen them. I remember them. So I think that as they go on a run, I can picture them doing that. I know the path isn't great. This is one of the things I had in my head before the bracket came out. So I'm like, I'm sorry, it was already in my head. And then who I want to see win, look, we have our futures. I'm on Creighton as well. I'm on Indiana as well. But I want to see Kentucky. I have a take here that you get, if your team doesn't make the tournament, you get to kind of have a hall pass. You get to go jump on the bandwagon of someone else. And it can't be one of the favorites. It can't be one of the 1 seeds. The great thing is Kentucky is traditionally good, but they're a long shot. So I'm all in on Kentucky. They're my hall pass. We know we're not going to root for that Syracuse state-run media team. So, good thing they're not in the tournament. But I'm all in on Kentucky. It just would be fun. The storylines. Anytime you get Coach Cal in the mix, I just want to see that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's why I like Creighton too, with just like this. I like the 6 seed that make a run. Kentucky also one of those 6 seeds can make the run. It'll be interesting. They're one of the better teams in the last 30 days, but
right.
They
when they look bad, they look real bad.
Yeah, they look really bad. But when they look good, they look good. And they have a tough path too. I mean, Purdue, Duke, and Marquette, right? Those are the 3 teams in that group. So it's interesting. I tend to disagree with you on UCLA only because I think Jalen Clark's injury proves a lot. But also, for some reason, I have this vendetta against UCLA, and I don't understand why. Because UCLA is one of the teams in the top 5 that like or top 25 of offensive defensive efficiency. By logic, like you have a great pick. I just like sit there and I'm like, I just think of all the times that I've bet against UCLA, and they've just like completely laid a dud in the first half. I'm up by like 10. I'm like, oh man, I'm doing good. And then you just like slowly refresh the feed or like watching, just like bucket, turnover, bucket, turnover, bucket, turnover, bucket. And I'm like, oh my goodness, and then you look at Jaime Jaquez and Tiger Campbell, and you're like, these are the 2 that are beating me. These are the 2 guys. It's not like it's like Adama Sanogo or like Ryan Kalkbrenner or like anyone else in like college hoops that's up there. Brandon Miller. Like you
I
watch Brandon Miller play,
know.
you're like that dude hoops. You see Jaime Jaquez with like the long hair, the headband, like the goatee. You're like, man, that guy is putting up 20 and 10 against me. I don't know. I've had so many bad beats from them. I'm just rooting against them at this point.
That's fair. That happens. That happens with
I do
teams.
think they get to the Sweet 16. I think they have a relatively easy path to the Sweet 16, and then from there, who knows? I like UConn from that region, but I am very interested to see all that all together.
I agree. And then you're Cinderella. You're
So what would you classify
Cinderella
as a Cinderella?
Are you asking because of like Utah State?
Like no, I don't think Utah State's my Cinderella. But like, would you classify an 8 or lower, a 12 or higher? Or 8 or higher, 12 or higher? What do you classify as Cinderella? And are we talking Sweet 16, Elite 8, or are we talking like Final Four?
I'm talking 10 or lower.
Okay, 10 or higher.
10 or higher to go to the Sweet 16.
Okay. I mean, I think the obvious one, and the one I am on, which makes me very cautious and nervous, is Drake. And I think just about everybody is on Drake. I
have the bracket up. I was staring at them as you said it.
Yeah, I literally, Drake or them, they are experienced. They have a very well-rounded squad. They have a great point guard, Roman Penn. They have Tucker DeVry. Like, they have a good team. They get an injured Miami team without Norchad Omier, or maybe without. If he plays, he's still limited. And then as much as like we have Indiana futures, this just feels like one of those years that Indiana loses in the first or second round, and I'm just like, they got a bad draw. I'm out on them already. I love Drake from like an experience point of view, because that means everything. Defense and experience.
Drake might be getting Kent State. Drake might be getting Kent State.
Right. And Kent State's no slouch either. I think whoever wins those two games are gonna win. Like, I think it's like that. If you want a Cinderella to make the Sweet 16, that's the region to target. Is either Drake or Kent. Like, Kent State plays great defense and they have a great veteran point guard, but I mean, they're not as fun as like Drake. Like, Drake was like, I'll never forget when I was like a sophomore or junior in college. They were like, I don't remember if you were betting at this time, or you probably were, because you were. Yeah.
Next question.
Drake was like the best team against the spread for like the first 25 games. They were like 23-2 or something like that. And I remember me and my buddy just like found it out when they were like 14-1, and we would just bet them every game. And so now I have a found love for Drake, because they just always cover the spread for me when I was like down bad and not a good college basketball bettor, as great as a college basketball bettor in college. And now I have like Drake, and now I have the opportunity to back them in the Sweet 16. They're my Cinderella. I think they could even make a deeper run than the Sweet 16.
It's funny. Good conversations that are good for the show, or like when a run like Drake, I will never jump in on it, because I'm like, the second I jump in, it's gonna fall flat. I will never. I know
that's how I am now. I'm too afraid to hop on the bandwagon now, where I'll like look up like, oh well, they haven't covered in the last 5, and the other team's covered in the last 5. Okay, I'm gonna go with the team that hasn't covered in the last 5. But when I was, 19-year-old Charlie DiSturco looking at college hoops slate, betting favorites on the road against conference opponents, I was doing that. So
yeah, that's a harsh lesson. Me and my buddy, when the Sabres, I forget it was last year or the year before, the Sabres went on like a 26-game losing streak, and we bet them every single night.
Yeah, they're due. That's the best thing in sports gambling, is being due.
And the text like would just be like, we're done. We're done with this, enough. And then I would just see him, like, I would just like this silent dance. I'd see him log Sabres plus 380, and at like 6:55, I'm like, oh, we're doing it again. He's like, we have to. That's
like how I was with the Bruins this year. Like, during their win streak, I'm like, screw it. Like, I did it like 3 times, and then I lost all 3, and I was like, I'm done. This team, I can't even deal with them anymore.
They win. Yeah, I know. And then when they finally do go on like a little bit of a skid, you were too scared.
Yeah, I saw the other day that you were on like Edmonton when you hit your parlay, and I was like, God, like, are you kidding me? Like, I didn't take it this time. Like, of course, the one time they end the winning streak, I'm not on that side. Like, I lost so much money on them in that 1 week.
I know. Well, so for my Cinderella, is the Buffalo Sabres. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like, you said it. I like the path is Furman. I think like that's kind of the path. But Oh God. You know what I'm going to settle, which someone I just haven't heard a lot about in terms of the trendy dogs. I'm trying to pick the least trendy dog in which I've heard about. I'm going to go with the Raging Cajuns to upset Tennessee. Tennessee, just like they are like a set your clock to it, get upset team. Louisiana, if they get by Tennessee, then, oh boy, that's great. You get Duke, a Duke team that by that time will have won $1 billion in a row. Maybe you get Oral Roberts there too, if you're lucky. And Louisiana moves on. And that's just because when I look at the bracket, I'm like, oh, I haven't heard a lot about Louisiana.
It's interesting. Calabrese is on. Mike Calabrese, I've been doing shows with him all week, is on Louisiana to outright beat Tennessee. So that's very interesting. I don't hate it. Like to Tennessee without Zakai Ziegler, like, are they that good on the offensive end? Maybe. Can they bully Louisiana? Probably. That's like where I get nervous with everything. I'll throw one more at you, and this one's like a screw it dart throw that I don't know if I think they win the first round matchup. I don't know if they win the round of 32, but it kind of goes against your little thing with Kentucky. Montana State.
I know.
They're a 14 seed. They're incredibly strong inside. And I think Kansas State's overrated. So I think that Montana State, I already bet them. I talked about it early in the show. Bobcats are live against Kansas State. And then if they get there, like the next round, like Providence could beat Kentucky. Kentucky lays up duds all the time. Like Montana State probably can't fully stop Sheboygan, but like their best like feature is that they're good inside. So I will probably take the Bobcats to win the first round. I doubt they win too, but like, you know what? This is where madness happens, is like that 13 to 15 range, right? Last year we had a 15 go to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16. Last year, what did
Elite Eight? No.
Elite Eight. Last year we had Elite Eight, and the year before that we had a 15 go. We had Oral Roberts go to the Sweet 16. So this year, by logic, we have one that's going to go to the Final Four.
Right.
So take that to the bank.
Well, that's why 2 brackets.
Drew Pember and UNC Asheville to the bank. Beat UCLA. Then they beat Northwestern or Boise State.
Oh my God, this is the thing. Now we're just naming every freaking Cinderella. This is no fun.
Howard Bison against Kansas, and then they beat Arkansas.
This is bad content. And now you sit there and you go, someone listening to
Texas A&M Corpus Christi beats Alabama.
My hair is so, I didn't have time to give it a good, my hair is like Kentucky.
Oh, you're talking about your hair. Look at my hair. It's about to fall off at this point with the amount of sleep I'm getting.
My hair's like our Indiana future. Gonna fall flat.
But you know what's not gonna fall flat? Our Creighton future. But
no. And what's not gonna, hopefully you fall flat into your bed and get some sleep. We're done here.
How about that for a transition?
Yeah, that's a freaking pro. Syracuse would try to recruit me, but I'm not just saying state run media things. I'm stopping.
Shout out Brent.
Shout out Brent. Be sure to follow Charlie in the Action app with all his wonderful, fun March Madness picks. Dogs are always fun just because, you want to be able to say that you had that underdog. So follow Charlie DiSturco in the Action app. Follow him on Twitter. Follow me in the Action app. I'll just be tailing Charlie for the most part. And follow me on Twitter as well at TimmyCal12. Thanks for tuning in. Charlie, anything else before we go?
Hook 'em, baby. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em. Good luck with your bets and have a wonderful, wonderful first 4 days of March Madness. We'll meet you back here.